Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavana Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarajana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarajana Yamuna Tiranachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalaha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarajana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarajana Yamuna Tiranachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalaha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarajana Yamuna Tiranachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Sutarsata. His Divine Grace A. Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopakopina Shama Sundara Kunda Giri Vardhan Ki. Vrindavan Ki. Mathura Dham Navadvip Dham Ki. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Ganga Mai Ki, Yamuna Mai Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Brihad Mirdanga Ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Gaur Premanande, All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhatnanti. Bhatnanti. Today the text is actually two texts. I'll try to get to 36 and 37. This is Canto 10, chapter 41, verse 36, and possibly verse 37. Yatta shuvali shamayvam prartyam yadi jijivisha patnanti knanti lumpanti driptan rajakulani vai. Yatta shuvali shamayvam prartyam yadi jijivisha patnanti knanti lumpanti druptam rajakulani vai. Yatta shuvali shamayvam prartyam yadi jijivisha patnanti knanti lumpanti druptam rajakulani vai. Patnanti knanti lumpati driptam rajakulani vai. Yata shuvali shamayvam prartyam yadi jijivisha patnanti knanti lumpanti driptam rajakulani vai. Yata, go. Ashu, quickly. Balisha, fools. Ma, do not. Evam, like this. Prartyam, beg. Yadi, if. Jijivisha, you have the desire to live. Patnanti, they tie up. Gnanti, kill. Lumpanti, and loot his house. Driptam, one who is bold. Raja Kulani, the king's men. By, indeed, translation. And purport by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. Fools, get out of here quickly. Don't beg like this if you want to stay alive. When someone is too bold, the king's men arrest him and kill him and take all his property. Please repeat. Fools, get out of here quickly. Don't beg like this if you want to stay alive. When someone is too bold, the king's men arrest him and kill him and take all his property. Chakshurum militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitam yena Bhutale. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. O Krishna, O ocean of mercy, O friend of the fallen, O master of the universe, O chief of the cowherd boys, O lover of the cowherd girls, O lover of Radha, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radha Vrindavaneshwari, Vishavanusudevi Pranamami Hari Priya. O Gaurangi of bodily complexion like molten gold, O Radha, Queen of Vrindavan, O daughter of King Vrishavanu, O goddess, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, so dear to Lord Hari. Panchakal Paturvyascha Kripasindhuyavacha Patitanam Pavanevya Vaishnavya Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there's the verse number 36. Yatashu Valishamavam Prathyam Yadi Jijivisha Patnanti Gnanti Lumpanti Driptan Raja Kulaniva. Fools, get out of here quickly. Don't beg like this if you want to stay alive. When someone is too bold, the king's men arrest him and kill him and take all his property. Commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, the normal meaning of the verse is clear. However, there is another meaning. Actually, it's a little bit not so clear. It's ambivalent in a way. Appears to be. O Bhagavan, who on the pretext of taking 3 steps of land claimed the body of Balisa, you should not request in this way if you want to keep me alive, just as Bali fell into danger by giving in charity. If I give you the cloth, I will not live beyond today. The servants of the king will bind you up. The servants of the king will bind up that person who is not afraid of Kamsa, Triptam. And after informing Kamsa, they will kill him and loot his house. And Srila Jiva Goswami says, O fools, writes, O fools, you should quickly flee. You should not ask like this again. The king's men will beat you, Gnanti, and injure you, Lumpanti. I forgive you now since you are children. The hidden meaning is as follows. People like me, this is the washerman speaking, people like me are fickle fools. If you desire to show how you maintain others' lives, you should not ask like this. How can warriors test their strength on a washerman? Persons like you, coming in a royal family, tie up persons filled with pride. Jiva can mean maintaining strength or life. Sanatana Goswami, very short. O fools or O boys, Balisha, this means they had not reached Yavana period. You're innocent, without pride. Quickly flee. Do not ask for anything again. The king's men will beat you and stab you. So this is the washerman speaking to Krishna and Balaram and the boys in general. So it is explained here in, I go through different verses, bring up different points, that this servant of King Kamsa, who is the washerman, is angry and insulting. But Krishna is approaching him very sweetly. He tells him, give us this and you'll get the greatest benefit. And his retort is that he's insulting the children, the young man. And he also, washerman began speaking poison in order to attain the destination desired by the foolish, which is hell, he was actually not very aware of his bad self-interest, or at all wasn't aware that giving the cloth to Krishna was the greatest benefit. But he was benefited because he was killed by Krishna personally. It is said that these words of the washerman can be understood in two different ways. Mother Saraswati gives us a different meaning to the words. It so happens when, when we read these books about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, any insult turns into praise. Any bad word turns into something beautiful, because it is understood that the words in Sanskrit have so many different meanings. And when the person is trying to insult the Supreme Lord, actually he's praising the Supreme Lord. So the washerman is saying, really, O boys of excellent character who herd cows on Govardhan, will you wear these material clothes? That can never be. Why? Because Krishna doesn't need these clothes, which are inferior to the beautiful golden embroidered cloth that he wears when he goes with his friends to tend the cows. So that can never be. You really don't need these clothes because they're not up to what you really need to wear. He asks the washerman, why do you desire the king's objects? Having come to the king's city, you will gain only fear by offending the king. So the washerman is very afraid. And he, in the verse for today, in verse 36, he's saying that the men of the servants of the king are going to kill them, stop them, take away everything. But at the same time, he's saying, please go away, because I'm afraid that if I give you all these things, Kamsa is going to actually kill me, stab me, kill me, and take all my possessions, the possessions of my family. So that's why it is a little bit ambiguous in verse 36, the one for today, that the washerman is actually saying, please go away, don't cause me any trouble. Why would you cause trouble for people who are Shudras? You are kings, you are the royal order of princes. Why should you bother molesting, bothering somebody who's a Shudra? How can you prove your valor and your courage by actually causing a Shudra to die at the hands of the king? So he's really very afraid. He wants to instill fear in the Supreme Lord, of course. The Supreme Lord thinks it's kind of laughable, but he is deathly afraid. And so I thought that this would be a good subject to talk about, the subject of fear, because we all have these four tendencies, which is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, sometimes called fearing. And it is inbuilt, because in order to protect ourselves or anybody who is sentient, even insects, animals, all kinds of living entities are sentient, they have to have this mechanism of fear in order to be able to reject and react when there is danger. So that is innate in us. And I thought I would also bring up a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is 7:27, which is also a natural tendency that is in us as conditioned souls, not in us as spirit souls, but in a conditioned state. So this is verse 7:27, and it reads like this. Ichadvashya samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham salgiyanti parantapa. O sign of Bharat. Now as Krishna is talking to Arjuna. O sign of Bharat, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So what a condition we find ourselves in. We have this fear, innate fear, and we also are conditioned by and bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. That's our predicament, which means it's very easy for us to have desires, cannot be avoided, but the desires are material desires because we are bewildered, thinking that we're the body, and also hate or envy, sometimes translate as envy. So we have to be aware that these things are foremost in our consciousness. The consciousness is not pure. And so we can act with material desires. We can act toward somebody else with disdain, dislike, hatred. It's not unnatural. It is not unnatural in the conditioned state. So we have to be very careful because it may happen sometimes that we see something or we see somebody and immediately we have this distaste for that activity or for that person. And where is that coming from? From the dualities that are in our consciousness, polluted consciousness of desire, material desire, and dislike, hate, or envy of other situations or other actions or other individuals or other sentient beings. So this is something that we have to be aware of because our response may be that when something happens, we have an immediate gut response along those lines, and we have to be very careful to stop, think, and then choose how to react. We have that ability. We have been given that ability to stop, think, and react in a way that is good for us and good for the other person or the other people or the other situations. So it just takes a little bit of thinking, okay? And it's a very, very formidable, powerful manner of being able to react in ways that are against these tendencies that are in our consciousness, but in order to create something positive and beautiful. So, talking about fear, we have fears, we have anxieties. Fear normally is described as that situation that is causing tremendous distress, but in the future, anxiety is more like fear, it's another form of fear for something that may happen in the future. So whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, it's another form of fear, we have to be aware that we are doing something in our devotional lives that will eradicate these fears and these anxieties. And how is that? Well, there are so many recommendations and so many verses in the Bhagavad Gita, in Srila Prabhupada's lectures in the Srimad Bhagavatam that talk about how we are not really to be affected as we become purified. So I'm going to read something that I found in Vanipedia. It says, fear, an essential subject. In other words, there are several essential subjects that are being listed, things that are very, very prevalent, things that really need to be examined closely and understood so that we can do something about that. The greatest fear that human beings have is the fear of death. We also know, as devotees, that there is another fear, which is probably even worse. Anybody has an idea what that may be? Being separated from the devotees, forgetting about the Supreme Lord. That's a tremendous fear. Whatever we make it in this life or we make it in some other life, we need to pray that please allow me to be in your service, life after life. Life after life. This is verse number 4 of the Shiktam. So, this is because this fear of death, of the uncertainty of life, and especially the uncertainty of the manner in which death engulfs us. We know we're going to have to leave this body, and the uncertainty, how is this going to happen? What kind of condition am I going to find myself in? Will I be conscious? However, the most prominent reason for fear is attachment to this material world and the fear of losing everything that we have built in our lives, like relations, wealth, etc. We're losing everything. We came with nothing. We leave with nothing, right? This happens because we tend to identify ourselves as the body and not the soul within. If we come to the understanding that we're all eternal servants of Krishna and that we're only meant to be temporarily situated in this world of miseries, we will immediately lose all our fears and be happily situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And I like the word happily because as we progress in spiritual life, a driving force is the desire to taste the sweetness of this process and the feeling of happiness, actually, of these 64 limes, 64 angas of devotional service. One of them is joyful, to be joyful. The body is joyful. It's also in chapter 9, verse 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, to perform something with joy. This is a joyful process because there is experience, there's realization of what is being given by the Supreme Lord. Not that we have to blindly believe whatever is written there or written in any of the scriptures. We have to actually come to the point of experiencing. And when we experience how real this is, then there is this natural joy that emanates and that pervades all our activities in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada's books, lectures, conversations, and letters offer a comprehensive presentation of this essential subject and in the fear category. So there are many quotes from Srila Prabhupada about how overcoming fear, how fear will be eventually eradicated. It's not that we have to fight to overcome fear. We have to fight. We don't have to fight. We have to engage ourselves in the process of devotion by hearing, by chanting, by associating with especially advanced devotees, by performing our devotional activities, by trying to have the thought of Krishna in our minds as much as possible, to remember as much as possible. Can be done very easily by chanting whenever there is a moment that we may be thinking of something else that's causing us distress. We can, on the contrary, we can think of Krishna and chant the holy name in our mind as we drive, as we walk down the aisle of the supermarket, in any circumstance. So there is a very interesting verse that is being quoted here, and there's so many verses about fear. And this is Canto 11, chapter 2, verse 37. I'd like to say something before I go into this, because the story, we heard that the washerman was the washerman that whose wife criticized Sita. And before that, there's a story in the Padma Purana that explains how these two pigeons, a male and a female, were chirping and were talking very happily about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Sri Ram. And they were in the garden of Sita, and they were perched on a tree, but Sita was hearing everything. I don't know if you've ever heard this story. Sita was hearing everything. And so she asked the birds, "Tell me more, I want to hear more." And so the birds were just sharing all about the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra that were going to happen, because they used to live in the hermitage of Valmiki, so they had learned all these things at that time. And so ahead of time, they were describing all these pastimes that were going to take place. So the female bird, she is a couple of parrots, was pregnant. And so Sita asked her attendants to catch the birds. And they did. And she wanted to hear more, and she wanted to hear more. But the birds said, "Don't worry." She said to the birds, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'll caress you. I'll stroke you. I'll take the best care of you," very lovingly. And the birds say, "No, we live in the forest. We like to roam here and there, go places. We like our freedom." But Sita would not let go of the female parrot. So the female parrot cursed Sita that she would be separated from her husband when she was pregnant. And then after she said that, she left the body, the parrot left the body, and there was this golden carriage that came from Vaikuntha to take her to the spiritual world. Now her husband, the parrot, the male parrot, was so aggrieved that he said, he also cursed Sita. And he said, I will become a washerman, a Shudra, during those pastimes that are coming up of Lord Ramachandra, and I will cause you great distress. So he was born as a washerman, and his name was Krodan. Kroda, of course, is anger, Krodan. And so eventually he's coming back, and he is afraid that his life is at stake. So let me go back to this verse, and I'll read the verse. This is Canto 11, chapter 2, verse 37. Bhaya specifically talks about fear. Bhayandutiya bineshata syat ishat apittasya viparyayo smirtihi dhammaya yattu buddha abhajetam bhaktaikashyam guru devat tatma. Fear arises. This is Lord. This is Narada Muni who's giving a talking to King Parikshit about King Nemi, the Yogendras. He says, fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul. So we are in the ocean of death, struggling with death. And here comes this personality that is going to give us the knowledge that we need to understand that we are in a very precarious position, that we're not the body, and that he can give us the guidance that is needed for us to get out of this very, very terrible situation. But it may sound a little bit overly dramatic what I'm talking about. There are so many verses that are so encouraging as we read the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, as we hear different lectures where Prabhupada is very clearly saying, take the shelter of the advanced devotee, serve the devotee, inquire from the devotee, and render service to the devotee, and he will take care of you. He also says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham, what was it? Moksha yeshame masuchaha. He's saying, abandon everything, take shelter of me, and I will take care of you. Do not fear. So we are in the best of hands. Krishna is taking personal care of us. He's taking care of us through so many ways, in so many ways. He's taking care of us by the association with those devotees that are being helped, or are helping, by the association of the advanced devotees who are giving us guidance, by the different books that we can read and we can absorb, by the different classes that we can listen, by the chanting of the holy name, number one, chanting of the holy name. And in this way, Krishna is taking care of us. Now, what happens when Krishna is taking care of us and we don't respond? It doesn't matter. He continues to take care of us. He never gives up. His caring, loving care, his loving attitude toward us, and is always finding ways in which we may be able to connect, or if we have become disconnected, to reconnect with the Supreme Lord. Once we say to the Supreme Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, I really want to be with you. I really want to serve you. The Supreme Lord says, he's mine, he's mine, she's mine. And I'll never let him go or never let go of her, never. So we're in very good hands because now Krishna personally is taking care of the devotees. And we can go this way, we can meander, we can go astray for a little while. He's always finding a way to bring us back, always finding a way, because he knows us very well, and he knows exactly what makes us tick. And as Aditya Narayan was saying the other day, his relationship with each one of us is totally unique. There are unlimited living entities. Krishna is he wants to delight himself in relationships. And each relationship is unique and most beautiful. There's something that each one of us wants to offer to the Supreme Lord. And in offering that, we become completely satisfied. Now, there's a verse that talks about how to become satisfied, but the one that we need to think of satisfying is us satisfying the Supreme Lord. As soon as the Supreme Lord is satisfied, immediately we become totally satisfied and peaceful. So, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, this is part of the purport, the objection may be raised that since fear is caused by ignorance, it can be dispelled by knowledge, and there is no need to worship the Supreme Lord. Some people may say that. There's no need to worship the Supreme Lord. I have the knowledge. The living entity falsely identifies with this material body, family, society, and so on. And he simply has to give up this false identification. Then, what will Maya be able to do? In reply to this argument, Srila Sridhar Swami has quoted the following verse from the Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Navyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mamameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So if we surrender to the Supreme Lord, he makes it possible for us to easily come to him. The living entity called Jivatattva is one of the potencies of the Supreme Lord. But the constitutional position of the living entity is tatastha, or marginal. In other words, we're like right on the borderline. We can go in this direction of service to the Supreme Lord or in that direction of service to Maya. But as we serve Maya, we engage ourselves in activities that cause tremendous distress, because everybody has had experiences of suffering, experiences of fear, experiences of emotional distress, and this is all caused by associating with matter and try to be. Actually, the most important thing here to remember is that we are competitors. We want to be competitors of the Supreme Lord. And as long as we try to compete with the Supreme Lord, we're going to have problems. So that the thought is not to compete, but to cooperate. Not to compete, but to surrender, to give ourselves. Not surrendering like a soldier who has no choice but to give up, but a person who, by his own, her own volition, gives himself or herself to the Supreme Lord, to the devotional activities, to his guru, to her guru. There is a lot, much more here. It is important to make clear that bhayam, or fear, cannot ultimately be vanquished simply by impersonal realization as expressed by the words aham brahmasmi, which means I'm spirit soul. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, Nashkarmyam apyachutta bhava bharjitam nashuvate. Mere nashkarmyam, or cessation of material activities and repudiation of the bodily concept of life, cannot ultimately say one. This is in accordance with that argument that once I have knowledge and once I understand the oneness, that I don't have to worship the Supreme Lord. He says, no, that's not the case. That won't happen. The living entity must find a superior shelter on the spiritual platform. Otherwise, he will come back to the fearful situation of material existence. And thus stated in Shastra, although one may, with great labor and effort, struggle up to the Brahman platform, if he does not find a suitable shelter, he will come back to the material platform. His so-called liberation is the Vimukta Man, liberation by imagination. The principles of Krishna consciousness, my husband and I were just talking about this the other day, are really very simple. You are part and parcel of the Supreme. You're intimately part of the Supreme Lord. You're intimately integrated in this conception, but you are not accepting, you're not realizing that's the position. Once one realizes it, once we realize it, and then we turn our face toward the Supreme Lord and engage in acts of devotion, at that time we'll be properly situated, and at that time we'll be happy. It's very important that we experience some happiness in the process of devotional service. So the process of devotional service needs to be presented in a very positive light. Not, don't do this, but do this. Or if you have this mentality, this capacity, or this ability, use it in the service of the Supreme Lord so that people feel encouraged and fulfilled in serving the Supreme Lord. And with joy, with enthusiasm, with goodwill, with determination, patience. And it's just a matter of staying on the path, and eventually we'll reach the goal, which is love for the Supreme Lord. So I don't know what time it is, but if anybody would like to make a comment, or has a comment or a question or any objections. There's a lot in these books, and there's a lot in the lectures about how to actually understand reality, capital R reality, so that we can then choose how to act along that understanding in ways that are beneficial for us and beneficial for those who are around us, and beneficial in general, period. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Comments, questions, Maharaj? Objections, criticisms? Do you still have something to say? Rashakti, comments? All Krishna Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Enam Kanvanda Maravindalayatartham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Nandar Bhagom Vidamaniyam Visheshashoba Govinda Adipurusha Tanaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Tanaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Andani Asla Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Vikayanti Viragatati Ananda Chimaya Sadhu Jala Vikasya Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Bhajami Govinda
Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Namaham Vishnu Pataya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Jave Gauravani Prachayagi Sisha Shunyavagade Vasachare Satarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Punichanda Sri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaurattara Shri Krishna Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaurattara Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaurattara Shriya Dvaita, Gata Shiva Sade, Yora. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha, Radha, Jaya Shri Radha, Hey, Jai Om Vishnupada. Paramahansa.
Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pritaram Pranandaswadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tat Prapita Nimata Naranenaka Etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midrishami hajjani nanuraga trinadapi sunichena tarorapi suhishuna amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam vajagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Bishamebhavam Buddha Kribayatavapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrishim Vichintaya Nayanam Galadashudaraya Varanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam namishena chakshusha pravashayatam shunayatam jagat sarvam govindam virahena me aslishyavapadam ratam ranastumam adarshanam marmahata karotuva yatatata bhavandato lampato mat prananatastu sa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have arrested all transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind. Thinking oneself lower than the saw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Rajnanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally.